So I finally finished Crisis Core FFVII Reunion, and I wanted to make a video telling you about my experience with the game. You might remember that I did a first impressions video around Christmas, and I said that this just feels like the right game at the right time, and it most definitely was. I took a chance on it, and I'm quite happy that I took that chance. Now that I've experienced everything that the game has to offer, there are a bunch of live streams in the channel, which, by the way, I'm probably going to be using footage from those live streams, because at the point that my character is, I'm mostly just like one-shotting most of the missions that I go through, because my character, you know, this is one of those games where your character just becomes broken, overpowered by the time you get to the end of it. So my character's one-shotting everything, and the footage that I was trying to record to use in this video was just like not particularly engaging. So I'm just going to use some live stream footage. Hopefully you can forgive me for that. But anyway, what was it like playing Crisis Core? Now, it is important to mention that Crisis Core is, at the end of the day, a port slash remaster slash up-res textures, all of that stuff, of a PlayStation portable game. So there are going to be mechanics that are going to feel dated. If you happen to, you know, you've seen the gameplay and are like, you know, I'm interested in this game, Rurikhan, tell me more about it. And it's like, yes, I still would recommend the game because the game is still a lot of fun, but it definitely had a lot of situations. A lot is maybe saying too much. It had a couple of situations where I felt significantly frustrated with some of the systems in the game. So having said that, you know, from a visual standpoint, I think the game looks great. Naturally, there are limitations here because of the PlayStation Portable, so whenever you are moving from zone to zone, you'll notice that the zones are relatively small. That's not really a big problem. You'll get used to it fairly quickly, I would imagine, unless you're just like kind of a stickler for, I need to have a big open world game, otherwise it sucks. This ain't for you, okay? Because this is a mission structured game, and you know, you're gonna be going through kind of like small zones, picking up quests and whatnot, and then you're gonna be going off and doing those quests in these relatively contained maps as well, with random encounters and stuff like that. So it's not like this is going to be a big open world game. This is not going to be for people who want open world games. But having said that, I love the structure. I love the structure of having the mission-based stuff. I think it's great. From a visual standpoint, I think the game looks really good. Sound-wise, I think the game is also very, very good. Voice acting, I've heard a lot of people complain that they prefer the original voice actor for Zack. For me, because I don't have that point of reference, doesn't make that big of a difference, really. You know, it's usually what I expect from most Japanese games in terms of voice acting. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's all right. Okay, it's all right. That's pretty much what I can tell you about the voice acting. Sounds are good, and the soundtrack is excellent. Soundtrack is friggin' amazing. One of the best soundtracks for Final Fantasy games, in my opinion. Naturally, 14 is still way above that. But, you know, from all the Final Fantasy games that I've played, I greatly enjoyed the Crisis Core one. I understand that that's probably not going to be a popular opinion, but, you know, it is what it is. Then again, it's not like I've played a million Final Fantasy games. I don't have that much experience in the Final Fantasy franchise, so cut me a little bit of slack here. But anyway, having said that, what was the experience like? So I loved the start and the halfway points of playing this game. Now, for reference, I played the game on hard mode because usually most games when you play on normal, they end up being too easy. And I felt like hard mode is actually the proper difficulty for the way that I was playing, and it felt good. It provided an adequate challenge again throughout the start and throughout the halfway. But a little bit after the halfway, I pretty much hit a wall. And I noticed that I was hitting a wall because like I was hitting monsters and I'm like, wow, I'm dealing no damage, and any monster that I would fight would just like obliterate me. This started happening at around 6-star missions. So I could still comfortably do 6-star missions, but if I was to go into a 7-star mission, it was just like, blat, one shot, get killed, murdered, obliterated, destroyed, deleted, you know, all of that stuff. And so that's when I started looking into, okay, so how can I further improve the stuff that I'm doing? Which, you know, up until that point, the way that I've been doing materia fusion, I was like, hey, I'm going to put this materia with this materia, and that feels kind of all right, so let's keep going down that road. But, you know, you get to a certain point of the game where you really need to kind of like start optimizing stuff to a completely different degree. You really need to like, okay, you need to learn how you're going to put HP plus into this materia. You need to learn how to break the limit on your on your HP because you can break the limit. Because when you are playing the game regularly, the limit of your health pool is 9,999. But you can break that using items, and then it becomes 99,999. And that's kind of like how I began. Oh, now I don't get one shot anymore. As a matter of fact, in one of the streams, you might remember, I was fighting some monster, and this monster was just like destroying me. So I just went outside and I bumped up my HP by like twice or whatever. I think I had like 30,000. I bumped it up to 60,000. And so it's like, oh, this is much more doable now that the monster's not one-shotting me with every other attack. So it's just that kind of game, at least when you're playing at that difficulty. I didn't try normal mode, so I don't know what that experience is like. But for me, I kind of like, the point is I hit a wall at around 6 stars and 7 stars, right? In between those, at some point between 6 stars, 7 stars, hit a wall. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, it's time to really get into this and start trying to figure things out. And the thing is, once you figure things out, what ends up happening is you break the game. Like that's just the way it goes. You go from, you hit a wall, and it's not like most of the games where there's like a difficulty curve, right? No, in this game, it's like you hit a wall, and then you figure out how things work. And then you just break the game. You just instantly break the game, and you don't start instantly one-shotting everything, but you start grinding for the things that you need to in order to get to the point where you're going to be one-shotting and just destroying everything. And that's kind of like how it went. I think that the moment when I realized that this was happening was when I started looking at all of my items, because I had been doing a bunch of missions. I wasn't really looking at the rewards, to be honest. I was just like, oh, I'm just having fun doing these missions, just clearing up all the missions. I'm not even looking at what I'm getting. And then at one point, I was like, okay, so let's look through all of these items that I've accrued all throughout all of this time. Then I found one item, which was, I think, Magic Master or whatever it was. And it basically said, you no longer consume mana. We're going to boost your mana by like 100 or something. Going to boost your magic resistance by another 100. And so I was like, so I have infinite mana. So I can cast spells nonstop. Okay. So I just load up on a bunch of like really powerful spells. I think that the spell that I used the most at the time was like Electrocute. So I just started going through, missions and just destroying everything in seconds with Electrocute and infinite mana. And I was just like, wow, okay, things definitely change. I went from like beating up against a wall to just like smashing through the wall and destroying everything in my path. And, I just kept breaking the game from that point onwards. You start farming certain items and whatnot. And you just start pushing through. And I enjoyed breaking the game, but shortly after breaking the game, I then realized that like, okay, so now I'm going to go into the story. And people were warning me about this, so it's not like this came as a big surprise. But when because what happened was I would do story, and then I would do a bunch of missions. And then I would do story a little bit more, and then I would do a bunch of missions. And when I got to that last push that I kind of like broke through the wall, everything in the main campaign just became trivial. Like there was nothing that challenged me in any way. I just like shredded through everything because I broke past the wall and I basically broke the game. And now that kind of like caused me to lose a little bit of my mojo. Like I still greatly enjoyed the story. I think the story of the game is really good. And again, I feel like it just reinforced my point of view that Zack is a much better character than Cloud, even though I know that people are going to say, well, some people agreed with me. Some people say you really need to play the original like to its fullest extent to really understand the depths of Cloud Soul. But to me, it's just like, I just feel like I would much more enjoy a character like Zack over a character like Cloud. I've also heard people say that he's not really portrayed in the same way that they imagine in the remake, which that could be the case because the remake is the one that I've played the most. I know. Look, I'm when it comes to Final Fantasy, like I've played a ton of 14, got probably thousands of hours even on 14. Love it, adore it to bits. Played like 15, played a decent chunk of 8. Tried playing 7, couldn't get into it, but anyway, besides the point. I love the story. That's the point that I'm getting at. That ending is beast. And I now understand why a lot of people are frustrated with some of the stuff that then happens in what do they call it? Interlude, whatever, the Yuffie DLC post-credit scene, all of that stuff. I understand why people are frustrated, but at the same time, it's not like I am frustrated with what happens at the ending of Interlude, if that makes sense, because I like. It's hard to talk about this without without talking spoilers, but basically, let's just say I really enjoyed the story. That's what really matters for the discussion of this video. I really enjoyed the story, and it hasn't ruined anything for me with the stuff that happens in Remake. So up until this point, pretty happy, and it's actually got me more invested in the kind of like the universe around Final Fantasy VII, even though playing the OG is still something I can't get into because that art style, I like it. I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't. I might watch a video on it or whatever, but anyway, love the story. And now you guys are like, okay, so Rurikhan, why'd you feel like you had to break the game in order to then go do the story? And the reason is, there's a lot of things in this game that you can miss. And so I was going through the game and I'm like, well, I'm scared that if I advance the story and I don't do these missions, then I might miss out on something. And I wanted to do as much of the game as possible. And even still, I missed out on a bunch of stuff. And so that is the reason why I would keep doing the missions. And people would tell me, oh, but you're going to be really powerful by the time you do the main story. And I'm like, well, yeah, but there's stuff that you can miss. And I don't know what are the things that you can miss or what you cannot miss. So I kind of feel like I need to do all these quests. But anyway, after the story, these last couple of days, I've still been playing the game quite a bit because I wanted to gear up to the point where I could take on Minerva. So I have the most important Genji items. I could get all of the Genji items really because it's just a matter of farming like 1 million gil, whatever, which you can go and you can steal it from the Tonberry in 939. Is it 962? I think it's 962. Whatever. You can go steal the golden whatever things off of the Tonberry, and you can get tons and tons of gil. So it's not like that would be a big problem to get the final item, which would be the Genji helm. But I have all of the other ones. So yes, I farmed all of the DMW stuff. I went and I did the magic pot and used the actions, did all of that stuff. So I have all of the Genji items that I could need. I have the Zedric item that I got in some mission that I don't even remember which one it was. I have all of these things to make myself super powerful against Minerva. So then I start doing more materia fusion. And I thought I understood materia fusion. And then I realized that I actually don't like the materia fusion system in this game. I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is because I feel like there are things that you should be able to do in the system and they don't work. And it becomes very frustrating because, like, for instance, I have Costly Punch. And I would have, like, Costly Punch that when I made it, it was, like, plus 11 attack or whatever. And I was like, okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to level up these attack up materia. And then I'm going to put those into a Costly Punch. Seems reasonable, right? Don't work. Costly Punch either becomes Gil Toss or becomes attack up. And I'm just like, why doesn't this work? It feels like it's the most obvious thing that it should work. But in a lot of situations, as it turns out, just trying to meld stuff like plus 100 VIT into something, plus 100 SPR, which I'm assuming is Spirit, into something, and it would just like transform the whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, dude. This is, So that was very frustrating because like up until that point, I hadn't really paid too much attention to the way that it worked. I was like, oh, I can put HP into this. This works. I have this other material that has attack up. This works. And I would just kind of like jerry rig stuff around and it became really broken that way. And then when it came time to really min-max the crap out of my build, I realized that the system actually didn't work at all like I thought it did. And I kind of feel like it could have been done better. But I'm curious as for people that are veterans of Crisis Core, how do you feel about it? Because at the end of the day, my opinion is not really that important because this is a much older game. So what matters is the people who played it back then, how do they feel? Even though this is like a re-release or whatever, I still greatly enjoyed my experience, but I just feel like the materia fusion system could have been done way, way, way better. But again, could just be a What was I going to call it? Could just be a consequence of its time or whatever. Maybe some people really enjoy the way that thing works. I don't know. But anyways, eventually I went through and I got all the stats that I actually needed to go kill Minerva, right? Where I maxed out my VIT, maxed out my SPR, maxed out my attack, and I went after Minerva. And then I realized, you know what? I'm actually not going to be, I'm just not going to do it. So I have everything that I need in order to kill her. You're talking about, I've seen some videos on YouTube. You're talking about like a 40+ minute fight on hard mode because Minerva on hard mode has 77,777,777 health points. And the max amount of damage that you can do in one hit is 99,999. So even if you're just like sitting there beating on her nonstop, it's still going to take a considerable amount of time. But on top of it, you're also expected to dodge certain mechanics and whatnot. And I was like, dude, this is a very long fight, and it's going to be more about patience. And I'm no longer that good at long, drawn-out fights. Particularly this fight also has something that was really confusing me because I'm like, I have Phoenix, so I'm never going to die unless, I'm never going to die as in I'm never going to get to a game over screen unless I mess up my Phoenix usage. But apparently the boss also has an attack that cancels out Phoenix. And I was like, took me a while to realize what that was. There's a melee attack called Flash Slash that just like takes away Phoenix and also one-shots you in the process unless you have max VIT. So I'm like having to time all of that stuff together with Costly Punch and doing all that. Because at the start, I didn't even want to use Costly Punch. I wanted to use Assault Twister Plus. But landing Assault Twister Plus on Minerva, forget about that. That's not happening. And even then, on max attack and breaking through barrier, because you can do that because of the mastery system with the Buster Sword. Max attack, breaking through barrier, doing all the right things. Assault Twister Plus would still not reach the damage cap on all 3 hits. And I was like, okay, then this is just straight up not worth it. Might as well just go for Gill Punch because it makes it easier to hit. And that's kind of like the strategy that I was going to go for. Just not Gill Punch, Costly Punch. I know that you can also farm like God knows how much Gill and then just like kill her with Gill Toss. But I was like, I don't feel like, I think I did the calculations and it was going to be about 7 hours straight of grinding the Tonberry. I'm like, I'm not willing to put in 7 hours to beat this old ass boss. It's just not happening. So I ended up not doing Minerva, but at the end of the day, I still greatly enjoyed the game. I think the game is really cool. I don't want them to change Minerva because, like I said, this is a game that it is something of its time, and I think that the people who played it originally will appreciate the game more being like this, and I don't want them to change the game because of me. I don't think, as a matter of fact, that's kind of like the stance that I take on most games that I find to be maybe too hard for me or too demanding or demand too much time or something. I'm like, it's just not for me, But the rest of it, I loved it, greatly enjoyed it. I think the game is awesome, and I highly recommend it. But yeah, I didn't do Minerva. I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to, but I'm not spending like 40 minutes avoiding what's it called, Flash Slash, to make sure that I don't get my ass killed. But either way, let me know what you thought about this video in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.